Introduction. The power you've been overlooking. There's a power most people never tap into. Not because they don't have access to it, but because they've been taught to ignore it. They've been told that being loud means being strong, that the one who talks the most wins. That communication is about constantly having something to say. But what if that's wrong? What if the real power lies in restraint, in knowing when not to speak, in creating space instead of filling it, in commanding presence without chasing attention? This is the silent advantage. And once you understand it, everything changes. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes a superpower. In a world that values reaction, your ability to pause becomes a weapon. And in a world where everyone is trying to be heard, the one who knows when to hold back often holds the most control. This audiobook isn't about staying quiet out of fear. It's about learning how to use silence intentionally, to influence without trying too hard, to lead without shouting, to communicate without over-explaining, to walk into any room and command attention, not with volume, but with presence. You'll learn how silence is misunderstood and how it's actually one of the most potent forms of communication. You'll learn how to speak less and say more, how to use pauses to your advantage, how to be seen as calm, centered, and composed, even in chaos. And most importantly, you'll learn how to think clearly, lead quietly, and move confidently without ever needing to raise your voice. Because silence isn't passive. It's active. It's chosen. And when used strategically, it's stronger than any argument you could ever make. Throughout this audiobook, we'll break down the psychology, tactics, and identity behind powerful silence. We'll look at real-world examples, from negotiation to leadership to personal growth. And we'll help you build a reputation as someone who doesn't just talk, but moves with meaning. No more over-explaining. No more nervous rambling. No more leaking power through noise. You're here to own the space between your words. You're here to learn the art of influence, not through force, but through intention. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why silence wins. Silence makes people uncomfortable, not because it's awkward, but because it's powerful. Think about it. The loudest person in the room is rarely the one in control. The one who talks the most is often the one seeking approval. The one who fills every silence with noise is usually the one afraid to be still. But the person who can sit in silence without flinching, the person who can pause mid-conversation and hold it with calm, the one who doesn't rush to respond, who listens deeply, who speaks slowly and only when necessary, that's the one who holds the most influence, even without trying. Silence wins. And here's why. Silence creates tension, and tension creates power. In any conversation, there's energy, there's timing, there's flow, and there's power. When you speak, you release tension. When you pause, you create it. A well-placed silence makes people lean in. It makes them wonder what you're thinking. It makes them feel like what you're about to say matters. Silence gives your words weight. It turns your presence into gravity. And in that quiet space, people pay more attention. In debates, the one who stays calm holds control. In sales, the one who listens more sells more. In negotiation, the one who speaks last often wins. Why? Because silence forces the other person to reveal themselves. It makes them fill the space. It makes them explain, and that gives you all the leverage. Silence projects confidence. When someone speaks quickly, constantly, and nervously fills gaps, it signals insecurity. They're trying to earn space rather than own it. But when someone walks into a room and doesn't need to dominate the air, when they observe before speaking, when they choose each word with precision, that's confidence. That's poise. That's presence. You don't need to prove yourself when you already know your worth. And nothing proves strength faster than the ability to stay silent, especially when everyone else is trying to be heard. Silence makes you memorable. Most people speak to be remembered. But ironically, the ones who are remembered most are often the ones who speak the least. They say what needs to be said and stop. They don't chase laughs or likes. They don't tell you everything at once. They speak with intention, then disappear back into quiet. And that mystery, that restraint, That stillness? It makes people think about them long after the conversation ends. Silence lingers. And in a world obsessed with instant gratification, silence stands out. Silence gives you control. Words can be emotional. Reactions can be costly. But silence gives you space. Space to process. Space to observe. Space to decide whether to respond or walk away. When you stay silent, you buy yourself time to think, to breathe, to choose your next move with clarity instead of impulse. You're no longer reacting to the moment. You're controlling it. Whether in conflict, conversation, or decision-making, silence gives you the upper hand. You stop saying things you regret. You stop revealing too much too soon. You stop leaking energy through unnecessary noise. Silence is control, and control is power. Silence makes others reveal themselves. When you're silent, people rush to fill the gap. They explain more than they need to. They show their hand. They expose their insecurity. In interviews, in negotiations, in confrontations, silence is a truth serum. It makes people uncomfortable, and when people are uncomfortable, they talk. And when they talk too much, they give you everything you need. Sometimes, the smartest thing you can say is nothing at all. Here's the paradox. In a noisy world, silence is louder. In a reactive world, silence is strength. In a performative world, silence is authenticity. And in a desperate world, silence is confidence. You don't need to be the loudest to be heard. You don't need to explain everything to be understood. You don't need to speak constantly to be respected. Sometimes, you just need to sit back, observe, and let your silence do the work for you. In the next chapter, we're going to explore how to speak less and say more. Because it's not just about cutting words. It's about making your words count. Chapter 2. Speaking less to say more. In today's world, words are cheap. Everyone's talking, but no one's really saying anything. We've mistaken quantity for quality, speed for intelligence, and volume for influence. But here's the truth. The fewer words you use, the more power each one carries. The less you say, the more people lean in. And when you finally speak, it lands. This is the art of speaking less to say more. It's a shift in how you think, how you communicate, and how you show up. And once you master it, people will begin to hang on your words, because they'll know you don't speak unless it matters. Let's start with this simple truth. Over-explaining is a form of insecurity. The more uncertain someone feels, the more they try to justify, clarify, defend. They use 5 sentences when one would have done the job. They talk in circles, hoping the extra words will make their point land. But power doesn't explain itself. Confidence is felt, not explained. When you trust your message, you don't water it down. You say it once, clearly, calmly, and then you let it breathe. Now, let's talk about precision. Think about the people you admire, the ones whose words stick with you. They don't ramble. They don't chase validation. They don't flood the air with fluff. They're precise. They've trained themselves to remove the noise and speak in clean, impactful lines. That's not an accident. It's a discipline. Great communicators think before they speak. They pause. They filter. They speak only when they know it's worth saying. And when they do speak, it's unmistakable. There's no filler, no extra weight, no apology hidden in the tone. Just clarity, presence, power. There's another layer to this. When you speak less, you create contrast. Most people say too much too often about everything. So when you don't, you stand out. Your silence becomes your punctuation. Your words become rare, and rare things are more valuable. People start paying closer attention. They stop interrupting. They start noticing the space around your words, and that space becomes part of your message. One of the most powerful communication techniques in the world is the pause. A pause before you answer a question. A pause before you deliver your opinion. A pause after you drop your point. It gives weight to what you just said. It shows that you're composed. It creates rhythm, and rhythm is how people remember you. When you speak quickly, people forget. When you speak slowly, with confidence and intention, you make impressions. Let's look at real-world examples. Think about the best speeches, the most iconic interviews, the people who change your thinking. They weren't rambling. They weren't trying to fill space. They were measured. They were deliberate. They spoke with authority, and that authority came not just from what they said, but from how little they needed to say. Even in high-stakes environments, like negotiations, leadership, or debate, the person who controls their words controls a room. They don't talk over people. They don't defend every comment. They don't feel the need to explain themselves into safety. They let their silence build tension. They let their words create impact. And they let others fill the space while they hold the power. Now here's something important to remember. Speaking less doesn't mean withholding. It doesn't mean you're cold or distant or avoidant. It means you respect your words, and you use them like currency. You don't spend them where they aren't valued. You don't give them away just to make noise. You use them to connect, to clarify, to shift, not to entertain. This shift will change how people see you. It will change how people respond to you. And it will absolutely change how much influence you carry in a room. So here's your challenge. For the next 24 hours, speak 20% less. Let silence do more of the work. And when you do speak, do it with presence. Start filtering every sentence. Ask, is this helpful? Is this needed? Does this strengthen or weaken my message? If it doesn't add, cut it. If it's emotional fluff, pause. If it's something better shown through action, don't say it, show it. This is how you develop verbal precision. This is how you train your tone, your timing, and your power. This is how you build a voice that commands respect, not just attention. In the next chapter, we'll take this one step further. You'll learn how to use strategic silence in real conversations, not just to gain attention, but to shift dynamics, hold ground, and control outcomes. Chapter 3. Strategic silence in conversation. Most people talk their way out of influence. They try too hard to impress, explain, or defend. They think the key to winning a conversation is out-talking the other person. But real communicators, the ones who own the room, know something different. They know the secret isn't speaking more. It's pausing more, saying less, and learning how to use silence strategically. Because silence is not just the absence of sound. It's a tool, a tactic, a power move. And when used with purpose, it can shift conversations, relationships, and outcomes in ways that words simply can't. Let's break it down. There are 4 ways to use silence in conversation, and each one puts you in a position of strength. 1. The pause before you speak. Before you answer a question, pause. Before you share your opinion, pause. Before you respond to criticism or challenge, pause. Even 2 seconds of silence can change the entire tone of a moment. Why? Because a pause signals control. It shows that you're thoughtful. It slows the tempo and gives you space to respond, not react. People who pause come across as more confident, more competent, and more emotionally regulated. And in high-pressure conversations, that pause is your advantage. It keeps you calm. It makes them lean in, and it signals that your words are measured, not emotional. 2. The silence that follows a statement. One of the most powerful things you can do is say something impactful, then stop talking. Don't repeat it. Don't water it down. Don't explain it to death. Just let it land. For example, I'm not comfortable with that. Pause. This direction isn't aligned with the outcome we need. Pause. I'll think about it. Pause. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. Let it create tension. Let it force the other person to respond, instead of you chasing your own point. Silence creates pressure, and pressure creates clarity. 3. The listening silence. This one's huge. Most people aren't really listening. They're just waiting for their turn to speak. But when you stay quiet, fully quiet, and listen with presence, people reveal everything. In fact, the more silent you are, the more people talk. And more people talk, the more they expose their thoughts, insecurities, and intentions. This is crucial in negotiation, sales, leadership, or conflict. Don't interrupt. Don't jump in with your take. Let them speak. Then let them keep speaking. They'll show you exactly where their leverage is or where it isn't. Silence isn't just passive listening. It's active control. 4. The power shift silence. In any heated conversation, argument, or power struggle, silence can be a game changer. When someone expects you to argue and you don't, you confuse them. When they insult you and you don't react, you disarm them. When they try to bait you and you stay calm, you gain control. Silence makes people confront themselves. It forces them to fill the space. And often, that space becomes the mirror they were trying to avoid. You're not being passive. You're being precise. You're choosing silence not because you're afraid, but because you're grounded. That kind of presence changes the room without ever raising your voice. Now, here's what separates amateurs from masters: intentionality. Strategic silence isn't about being quiet all the time. It's about knowing when to pause, when to let someone speak, when to hold your ground without saying a word. You're not avoiding communication, you're mastering it. You're not passive, you're positioned. You're not silent because you don't have something to say. You're silent because you know exactly when to say it. And that subtle shift, that's where influence lies. Here's your challenge. In your next conversation, try this. Pause before you respond. Let others speak without interrupting. Say less, but mean more. Let one sentence be enough. Hold eye contact during the silence. Watch how it shifts the room. You'll be surprised at how quickly people start treating you differently. Not because you've changed what you say, but because you've changed how you say it. And that's the silent advantage in real time. In the next chapter, we're going deeper. Because silence isn't just external, it's internal. We're going to explore the inner power of quiet and how controlling your internal dialogue creates unstoppable emotional clarity. Chapter 4. The Inner Power of Quiet. We've talked about silence as a communication tool, but now it's time to go deeper, because the most important silence is the silence inside your own mind. In a world that never shuts up, with constant notifications, opinions, updates, distractions, finding inner quiet isn't easy. But it's essential, because external silence means nothing if your inner world is loud and chaotic. This chapter is about mastering your internal dialogue, because the truth is, most people aren't being drained by other people's voices. They're being drained by their own. Let's get real. You wake up and the noise begins. Did I sleep enough? What if today goes wrong? I should have handled that differently. Why haven't I made more progress? Thought after thought, loop after loop, noise without end. And it doesn't matter how calm you look on the outside. If you're mentally scrambling 24/7, you're not at peace. You're performing while silently unraveling. But here's the power most people overlook. You can silence your mind. You can train it. You can lead it. You can give it space to breathe. And when you do, you access a version of yourself that's clear, composed, and unstoppable. Inner silence is emotional control. When you're mentally noisy, your emotions own you. One comment ruins your day. One failure rewrites your self-worth. One unknown spins into anxiety. But when you build inner stillness, you respond instead of react. You stop being pulled by every emotion. You stop being a prisoner to every thought. Instead, you become an observer. You see the thought, but you don't become it. You feel the trigger, but you don't collapse to it. You hear the self-doubt, but you don't agree with it. That's not suppression. That's mastery. Stillness builds clarity. When the noise drops, the signal becomes louder. You can hear what matters. You can feel what's right. You can make decisions without overthinking. Think about it like this. If you have 50 browser tabs open, your system slows down. So does your mind. Inner quiet is like closing the tabs. Not because the information isn't useful, but because you can't do everything at once. When you learn to sit with silence without needing to fill it, you learn what's essential. You learn what's true. You hear yourself again, not the world. Tools to build internal silence. You don't have to go live in a cave to find inner quiet. You just need a few simple rituals that anchor you. Let's break down some of the best ones. 1. Journaling. Get the thoughts out of your head and onto paper. No filters, no grammar. Just dump the noise. Most of what clutters your mind just wants to be seen. Once you write it down, it loses its power. 2. Breath work or meditation. Even 5 minutes of conscious breathing can reset your nervous system. It's not about clearing your mind. It's about separating you from your thoughts. It's about remembering that not every thought deserves your attention. 3. Intentional silence. Try taking 30 minutes a day without input. No music, no screens, no talking. Sit, walk, stare at the wall if you need to. At first it'll feel strange, even boring. But over time it becomes freedom. The world stops controlling your focus. You do. Inner quiet is a weapon in a loud world. Everyone's reacting. Everyone's overthinking. Everyone's running mental marathons trying to impress, prove, or explain. You're slowing down. You're listening inward. You're building a mind that doesn't shake every time life pushes. And when you master that, when your mind becomes your ally instead of your enemy, you become unstoppable. Because the person who controls their internal state controls their external reality. Think about the people who seem truly grounded. They're not the ones talking nonstop. They're not the ones filling space. They're the ones who can hold their own energy without needing to prove it. That's what silence builds. It builds presence. It builds discernment. It builds the kind of self-trust that can't be broken by a comment, a setback, or a bad day. Here's your next step. Start carving out space for internal quiet daily, even if it's just 5 minutes. Make it part of your routine. Protect it like it matters, because it does. Because if you don't create space to think, the world will think for you. And if you don't create silence inside, you'll always be ruled by the noise outside. In the next chapter, we'll build on this foundation and explore how your physical presence, your stillness, your body language, your energy speaks louder than words ever could. Because silence isn't just what you don't say, it's what you radiate. Chapter 5. The energy of stillness. There's a kind of presence that doesn't need to speak. A quiet force that turns heads without trying. A calm, grounded energy that walks into a room and changes the atmosphere without making a sound. That's the energy of stillness. And it might be the most powerful, underrated form of influence there is. In this chapter, we're not talking about what you say. We're talking about what you radiate. Because long before people hear your voice, they feel your presence. And presence isn't created by volume. It's created by stillness. Think about someone you admire, someone who walks into a room and immediately commands respect. It's not their words. It's not their outfit. It's not their title. It's their energy. It's how grounded they are. It's the calm confidence in their posture, in their breath, in their stillness. They don't rush. They don't fidget. They don't fill silence with noise. They don't need to prove anything, because their presence speaks for them. That's what you're about to master. Stillness is felt before it's seen. We are energetic beings. Before someone hears your pitch, your introduction, or your story, they feel your vibe. They read your micro-expressions. They notice your rhythm. If you're scattered, rushing, reactive, they'll feel it. If you're calm, centered, grounded, they'll feel that too. Stillness isn't stiffness. It's not being robotic. It's about owning your space, physically, emotionally, energetically. It's about moving with purpose, standing with intention, breathing like you're not in a rush to prove or perform. Posture is power. Before you say a word, your body is already speaking. So ask yourself, do you walk like someone who respects themselves? Do you sit like someone who belongs in the room? Do you hold eye contact like someone who's not afraid to be seen? Stillness begins in the body. It begins when you stop fidgeting, when you stop rushing to respond, when you stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Stand tight, shoulders back, breath slow, feet planted. This is primal. People read it subconsciously, and it triggers a deep psychological response. This person is in control. Slowness signals strength. We live in a world of speed, quick answers, fast talk, instant repli. But those who move with deliberate slowness stand out. They eat slower. They walk slower. They speak slower. They decide slower. Not because they're unsure, but because they're not rushed. That slowness is strength. It says, I'm not reacting to your pace. I'm setting my own. It shows that you're not driven by fear, anxiety, or the need to impress. It's the opposite of desperation, and it's magnetic. Your energy introduces you before you speak. Before you say a word, you've already made an impression. So instead of asking, what should I say? Start asking, what am I radiating right now? Am I anxious? Am I centered? Am I grounded? Am I trying to be liked? Or am I rooted in truth? Because no amount of clever language can hide a scattered presence, and no amount of silence will feel powerful if your energy is desperate. Stillness isn't about muting your voice. It's about aligning your body, your breath, and your vibe so that when you speak, it actually lands. Practice stillness in daily life. Stillness isn't just for the stage or the boardroom. It's for everywhere. Waiting in line, practice standing still and breathing. Walking into a room, slow down, observe, take up space. On a phone call, sit tall, feet grounded, speak from your center. Feeling triggered? Pause. Inhale slowly, say nothing. Over time, this becomes natural. Stillness becomes your new baseline, and people will feel it, even if they can't explain it. They'll say you have a presence, that you're different, that you have something they can't quite name. That something is the silent energy of stillness. Here's your challenge. For the next 3 days, practice moving 10% slower than usual. Walk slower, breathe deeper, pause more often, say less. Notice how it changes how people respond to you. Notice how it changes how you feel about yourself. And most of all, notice how much power you already had once the noise was gone. In the next chapter, we'll take that presence and apply it directly to how you lead, respond, and control the room without saying a single word. Chapter 6. Control the room without saying a word. You've probably heard the phrase, actions speak louder than words. But here's something even more powerful. Presence speaks louder than both. In this chapter, we're going to break down exactly how to own the energy of any room. Not with ego, not with arrogance, not with noise, but with quiet, steady, unshakable presence. Because true leaders don't need to dominate the space. They become the space. And the most powerful person in the room? Often the one saying the least, but controlling the most. Let's start here. When you enter a room, you're not just physically arriving. You're sending a signal. How you walk, how you stand, how you scan the room, whether you rush, hesitate, or float through it, whether your eyes dart, or remain steady, these cues are louder than anything you'll ever say. They tell people whether they need to listen or not. They tell people whether they can test you or not. They tell people whether you're in control or just trying to be. Stillness plus awareness equals command. To control the room, you don't need to control people. You need to control yourself. You don't need to take the spotlight. You just need to remove the need for the spotlight. That's when people start paying attention. Real authority doesn't announce itself, it radiates. And the room can feel it even before you speak. The 4 keys to silent command. Let's break down the fundamentals of how to own a room without saying a word. 1. Enter with presence. Don't rush in. Don't slouch in. Don't sneak in like you're hoping not to be noticed. Walk in like you belong. Like your presence is an asset to the space. That doesn't mean puffing your chest or pretending. It means holding your posture, keeping your chin neutral, breathing slow, and walking at a controlled pace. It tells the room, I'm not here to impress. I'm here to contribute. 2. Hold eye contact without needing anything. Most people avoid eye contact or use it to seek approval. But when you look someone in the eye calmly, not staring, not challenging, just holding steady, you create an unspoken signal of confidence. You're not asking for anything. You're not demanding anything. You're simply being seen, fully and without apology. And that alone shifts the balance of power. 3. Let silence be your anchor. When you're asked a question, pause. When you finish a sentence, stop. Don't rush to fill the space. Let stretch. Let them feel the words you just dropped. Let them lean into your stillness. People who fear silence ramble. People who own silence rule the conversation. Every time you resist the urge to fill space, you strengthen your authority. 4. Observe more than you react. When someone's trying to provoke, impress, or test you, don't bite. Let them talk. Let them perform. Let them fill the room with noise. And just watch. Not with arrogance, with clarity. This tells the room, I'm not reactive. I'm aware. And awareness is more intimidating than aggression. Because you're not there to prove yourself. You're there to understand the landscape. And when you understand the room better than anyone, you run it. What happens when you master this? People defer to you without realizing why you speak once and it sticks. You walk into spaces and instantly elevate the tone. You become trusted, not for your volume, but for your steadiness. You stop chasing attention because your presence pulls it naturally, and best of all, you're calm, you're clear, you're in control, not because you said the most, but because you needed the least. Here's your challenge. The next time you walk into a room, any room, act as if your silence already says everything. No need to rush. No need to explain. No need to shrink. Walk. Pause. Observe. Hold. Speak only when it adds, and when it does, speak with calm. The room will feel it, even if they don't know why. In the next chapter, we're going to explore one of the most underrated uses of silence. Silence as a response. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is absolutely nothing. Chapter 7. Silence as a response. Not every comment deserves a reply. Not every challenge requires an answer. Not every insult needs your defense. Sometimes the most powerful move is to say nothing at all. In this chapter, we're going to break down how silence, used as a response, becomes a strategy of strength, clarity, and emotional control. Because silence isn't weakness. Silence is power when it's chosen. Let's get one thing clear. There's a difference between being silent out of fear and being silent out of confidence. Fearful silence is avoidance. But intentional silence, that's restraint. That's discipline. That's leverage. It's knowing you could react. You could explain. You could argue. But you choose not to, because silence protects your energy, protects your clarity, and protects your power. Silence disarms drama. Ever had someone try to bait you into a fight? Push your buttons? Say something just to get a reaction? When you respond, they win. Even if you win the argument, you've still given them access to your peace. You've let them drag you into their chaos. But when you respond with silence, everything changes. It throws them off. It stops the momentum. It forces them to sit in their own energy instead of shifting it onto you. They say something reckless. You just breathe. They demand a reaction. You blink and remain still. They spiral, and you stay centered. That's real power. Silence is the boundary they can't cross. When you argue, you open a door. When you explain, you give away leverage. But when you stay silent, you draw a line. It's a line that says, I don't play those games. I don't need to prove anything. I won't be pulled into your storm because I've built my own calm. Silence becomes your armor. It becomes your filter. It becomes your way of saying no without wasting a single word. When words would weaken you, stay silent. There are moments when speaking would make you smaller. Trying to convince someone who doesn't want to understand, defending your worth, to someone who's already disrespected, it over-explaining your choices, to people who aren't living your life, reacting emotionally when you already know the truth in these moments. Speaking isn't communication. It's a trap. And silence? Silence keeps your integrity intact. Silence keeps your energy whole. Silence keeps your identity untouchable. You're not obligated to respond just because someone wants a reaction. You are not rude for protecting your peace. You are not weak for choosing quiet over conflict. Silence can say more than words ever could. Think about this. Someone insults you, and you smile, then look away. Someone tries to start an argument, and you sip your coffee, unfazed. Someone sends a manipulative text, and you don't respond at all. Someone expects you to break, and you just breathe, slow, deep, and steady. That's not silence as avoidance. That's silence as power. That's presence under pressure. People remember that. They feel it. It shifts the dynamic without raising your voice. And over time, it earns you respect, not for being aggressive, but for being unshakable. When silence hurts them more than words ever could. Sometimes silence is uncomfortable for the other person, because when you don't react, they're forced to sit in their own words. They're left with their own energy. They realize they don't have the power they thought they had. They'll replay the conversation in their mind. They'll wonder why you didn't respond. They'll feel exposed because silence leaves them alone with themselves. That's the echo of emotional clarity. Here's the truth. Your silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you've already decided. You don't owe them anything. You don't need their validation. You don't need to win the exchange because you've already won your peace. When to use silence as a response. When someone crosses a boundary, when someone argues in bad faith, when someone tries to manipulate or guilt trip you, when a situation doesn't deserve your energy, when you feel emotionally hijacked and need time to return to center, give yourself permission to say nothing. Not as a retreat, but as a declaration. Because silence can speak louder than explanation, and stillness can carry more weight than any defense. Here's your challenge. The next time someone tries to provoke, pressure, or pull you into noise, choose silence. Even just for a moment. Breathe, pause, say nothing, and watch what happens. You'll feel your control return. You'll see their energy shift. You'll realize how much power lives in stillness. In the next chapter, we'll flip the script. Instead of focusing on how you respond, we'll explore the power of letting others speak and how silence can pull truth, trust, and influence from any conversation. Chapter 8. The Art of Letting Them Talk. Most people believe that influence comes from what you say, but the smartest communicators, the ones who hold the most power, know the truth. Real influence comes from what you let others say. In this chapter, we're flipping the dynamic. Because when you learn how to step back, hold space, and let people talk, you unlock one of the most overlooked, underestimated, and unstoppable forms of control. Why? Because people will tell you everything, if you just stay quiet long enough. Let's start with a simple truth. Everyone wants to be heard. It's not just a want, it's a need. And when you give someone the space to talk without interruption, they start to open up. They stop performing. They start revealing their real thoughts, their insecurities, their motives, their agenda. And in that silence, you gain all the leverage. Listening is a power move. Most people listen to respond. They're just waiting for their turn to speak. But when you listen to understand, when you stay fully present, nod, maintain eye contact, and don't rush in, you trigger something deeper. You become rare. You become safe. You become someone people trust. And in that trust, people tell you things they don't tell anyone else. They reveal more than they planned. They talk themselves into truth. They expose the very insights you need without you ever asking. You didn't manipulate. You didn't force. You just stayed still and let it happen. Silence forces the truth to rise. Here's what you need to know. People can't handle silence. When there's a pause in a conversation, most people rush to fill it. And in that rush, they overexplain. They reveal things. They get nervous and talk too much. This is especially true in sales, interviews, negotiations, arguments, coaching, leadership conversations. If you just hold the pause, if you just stay quiet and make space, they'll tell you what they're really thinking and what they reveal. That's your roadmap. To close the deal, to solve the conflict, to spot the weakness, to win the room. Ask less. Observe more. You don't need to interrogate. You don't need 20 questions. You need a few open doors and then silence. Ask, what makes you say that? Tell me more. What happened next? What's most important to you right now? Then stop talking. Resist the urge to jump in. Let them run. Let them wander. Let them fill the space. Because in that space, they'll reveal the real stuff. The rule of 80-20 listening. Try this. In any one-on-one interaction, aim to speak 20% of the time and listen for 80%. Use nods, eye contact, minimal encouragers like go on or I see. Let them carry the conversation. You'll notice two things. They feel more connected to you, even if you said almost nothing. You walk away with more information, more understanding, and more power. People love talking, and they especially love someone who listens without judgment, interruption, or agenda. That person, that's you now. In leadership, listening builds loyalty. If you're in any kind of leadership position, personal or professional, your ability to listen deeply will determine how much trust you earn. People don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the voice that understands them. And understanding starts with listening. When you let your team speak, when you let your partner explain, when you let the other person finish their full thought, you make them feel seen. And people who feel seen respect you more. They trust your silence. They don't see it as cold. They see it as strength. Listening also reveals who's worth your energy. Letting people talk also shows you who they are. Do they talk endlessly but say nothing? Do they only talk about themselves? Do they interrupt, overtalk, and never ask about you? Do they speak from insecurity or intention? Your silence gives them space to show you, clearly, who they are. So let them. Let them talk. Let them run their mouth while you gather intel, build understanding, and decide where your energy actually belongs. Here's your challenge. For the next 48 hours, talk 50% less than usual in every conversation. Ask fewer questions. Say less. Listen more. And notice. What people reveal how much more they trust you, how much calmer you feel, how your presence becomes magnetic. This isn't passive. It's active control. It's silent power. And it's yours now. In the next chapter, we'll take this even further. Because silence isn't just something you use in conversations. It's something you design into your entire lifestyle. From your schedule, to your digital inputs, to your inner circle. A silent life is a focused life. Chapter 9. The Silent Lifestyle. You've learned how to use silence in conversations. How to use it to hold power, command respect, and pull information. But now it's time to go even deeper. Because silence isn't just something you use. It's something you live. In this chapter, we're talking about designing a lifestyle around stillness, space, and intention. A life that protects your peace. A life that filters noise. A life that makes room for clarity, growth, and real power every single day. This isn't about being antisocial. It's about choosing quality over chaos. It's about living in control of your time, your energy, and your mind. It's about building a lifestyle where silence isn't just a tool. It's a way of being. Why silence needs to be a daily practice. We live in a world that rewards distraction. Every app, every feed, every headline is designed to interrupt. You're not just fighting for attention. You're fighting to keep your own. And when your life is filled with noise, you lose the signal. You stop hearing your own thoughts. You stop trusting your own intuition. You start reacting to everything and reflecting on nothing. That's where burnout starts. That's where anxiety grows. That's where confidence fades. But when you build in silence, real, intentional space, you reclaim your mind. You reset your nervous system. You remember who you are. Silence as structure. How to design your day. Let's get tactical. Start thinking about silence not as a break from life, but as part of your system. Here's how. 1. Silent mornings, no phone. No notifications. No external voices. Give yourself the first 20 to 30 minutes of your day in silence. Breathe. Stretch. Think. Right? Let your own thoughts greet you before the world tries to shape them. 2. Digital minimalism. Unfollow accounts that trigger noise. Turn off unnecessary notifications. Mute group chats. Block scrolling hours. Create tech-free zones in your day. Protect them like gold. You're not missing out. You're leveling up. 3. Quiet time blocks. Set aside a focus block daily. 1 hour of uninterrupted silent work. No music. No podcast. No stimulation. Let your brain process. Let your focus sharpen. That's where your deepest ideas are born. 4. Silent evenings. Instead of ending the day with chaos, and with calm. Take a slow walk. Reflect on what worked and what didn't. Don't flood your brain with junk before sleep. Clear it. These moments of silence compound. They sharpen your clarity. They clean your mind. They make your thinking faster, even when you move slower. Silence in your environment. Look around your space. Does it feel peaceful, or does it feel like noise? Declutter your surroundings. Turn off background distractions. Create small corners of calm. A reading chair, a journal desk, a quiet workspace. Your space is a reflection of your mind. And when you clean the external, the internal starts to follow. You don't need a mansion. You need a room that breathes. You need air in your space and in your day. Silence in your circle. Some people are noise in human form. They don't add clarity. They scatter it. They bring chaos to your calm. They confuse volume with value. Let them go. You don't need to explain. You don't need to announce it. You just need to quietly stop giving them access. Protect your circle like you protect your time. Talk less. Observe more. Build relationships that sharpen you, not ones that keep you in noise loops. This is social minimalism. Fewer people, deeper connections. Less noise, more clarity. Silence in your identity. When you build a silent lifestyle, something else happens. You stop needing to explain who you are. You stop oversharing. You stop defending your choices. You stop chasing external validation. You start moving in alignment. You start letting your energy speak. You start trusting yourself fully. And from that place, you become unshakable. Because silence builds not just clarity, it builds character. Here's your challenge. Design your day with silence in mind. Block it in your calendar. Make it part of your routine. Notice when the noise creeps in, and have the discipline to protect your peace. Because in the silence, you'll hear ideas that never had room to speak. You'll feel clarity that used to be buried. You'll remember what matters and let go of what doesn't. In the next and final chapter, we'll bring it all home. You've learned the strategies. You've practiced the power. Now it's time to embody this fully and become the quiet force the world never saw coming. Chapter 10. Become the silent force. Silence isn't just something you use. It's something you become. By now, you've learned the tactics. You've felt the impact of fewer words, deeper presence, and intentional restraint. You've seen how silence can shift a conversation, reframe power dynamics, protect your energy, and build a life of clarity. But now, in this final chapter, we go beyond strategy. Because the true goal is to become the kind of person whose silence says everything. We live in a world obsessed with being seen, with being loud, with being validated. People perform their personalities like a full-time job. They overshare. They overexplain. They chase approval at every scroll and every post. But the person who doesn't need to perform, the one who doesn't chase attention, the one who walks in quiet and moves with certainty, that's the person everyone notices, even when they say nothing. That's the silent force. What is a silent force? It's the individual who doesn't talk much, but when they do, it lands. The one who doesn't react, but notices everything. The one who doesn't seek validation because they're already anchored. They move like a calm storm. They think before they speak. They observe before they act. And when they act, it's deliberate, impactful, and unshakable. They're not trying to lead, but people follow. They're not trying to impress, but people respect them. They don't rise through noise. They rise through stillness. How to become that person? Let's break it down. 1. Trust your inner world. Silent forces have built a home inside themselves. They don't need external noise to feel full. They've cleared the clutter of overthinking, of insecurity, of needing constant reassurance. When you learn to enjoy your own company, when you can sit in a room alone without grabbing your phone, when you find clarity in solitude instead of panic, you've unlocked a level of power that can't be bought or borrowed. 2. Operate from observation, not reaction. You don't jump at every opportunity. You don't respond to every insult. You don't explain every move. You watch. You listen. You calculate. You choose your response like a chess player, not a panicked amateur. The more you see without needing to speak, the more powerful your silence becomes. People sense it, and they adjust around you. 3. Use words like currency. Every time you open your mouth, you spend energy. The silent force knows this, and so they speak less, but with more weight. They don't ramble. They don't fill silence. They don't say the same thing 3 different ways. They say it once, clearly, calmly, and confidently. And when they do, people stop and listen, because they know if you're speaking, it means something. 4. Maintain calm under pressure. This is a defining trait. The silent force doesn't crack under chaos. They don't yell when things go sideways. They don't collapse into drama. They hold. They breathe. They stay composed, not because they don't feel pressure, but because they mastered their response to it. Their calm becomes the gravity in the room, the anchor in the storm. The reason people say something about them just feels different. 5. Let your energy speak. When you walk into a room, your energy arrives first. The way you stand, the way you breathe, the way you don't need to say anything. That energy, it's your signature, and it's built through discipline, through letting go of performance and rooting into presence. You don't announce who you are. You embody it, and that speaks louder than any introduction. Final truth. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to compete. You don't need to convince. You don't need to chase the spotlight. Because the spotlight finds those who hold presence. It finds those who are so rooted in silence, so clear in identity, so calm in action, that the world adjusts to their pace. That's you now. Let your silence be your filter. Let your presence be your statement. Let your restraint be your sharpest edge. You are not here to be part of the noise. You are here to master the space between it. You are not here to overtalk your value. You are here to embody it. Every step, every breath, every pause. Here's your final challenge. In the coming days, weeks, and months, catch yourself before you overexplain. Pause before you respond. Hold the silence and let it speak for you. Notice the shift. Notice the clarity. Notice how much you control simply by saying less and meaning more. This is how you become the silent force. Not by being passive, not by being invisible, but by being intentional with your energy, your presence, and your voice. In the final outro, we'll close this journey and anchor everything you've learned into one clear message, one you can carry for life. Conclusion. Say less, mean more. Live quiet power. You've reached the end, but this isn't a conclusion. It's a recalibration. You've been handed a new lens, a new rhythm, a new identity, one that doesn't chase noise, one that doesn't seek validation, one that doesn't fear silence, but owns it. Because silence, when chosen with intention, becomes your shield, your weapon, your advantage. From here forward, everything shifts. You now know how to pause before you speak and make your words land. Let others talk and gain clarity, leverage, and insight. Command rooms with presence, not performance. Set boundaries without ever raising your voice. Build a life with space, calm, and deliberate energy. This wasn't just a guide to communication. This was a transformation in how you show up for yourself and in the world. You're no longer just reacting. You're leading, not loudly but quietly, with control, with confidence, with clarity. So let this be your new standard. Say less. Mean more. Let your words carry weight. Let your actions speak volumes. Let your silence do the work your voice never had to. You're not here to prove yourself. You're here to protect your energy, hold your frame, and radiate quiet power. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who move with purpose. People who aren't addicted to speaking because they've mastered the message within themselves. That's you now. You've learned the power of holding your ground without arguments, speaking when it matters, and only then saying everything by saying nothing at all. And if you ever forget it, just come back here. Let the silence remind you. Let the stillness sharpen you. Let the space between words rebuild your power. Because silence is never empty. It's full of clarity, strength, and meaning. Thank you for listening. Thank you for committing to becoming more powerful, not through more noise, but through more intention. Now go out and live it. Speak less. Observe more. Let the world adjust to your frequency. You are the silent force now, and the world won't be ready until they feel it. I'll see you in the next one. Stay grounded, stay clear, and stay quiet until it's time to speak. Then let your words echo forever